So he said he would try, but I suspect that's not going to happen.
And you're good to go.
All right. Welcome, everybody. So I believe we have our quorum. We need 3 of us, and I guess that's it. Hamad is not here, is he? Or I'm not seeing. Oh, yeah. Who else do we have here? Do we have a quorum?
We do have a quorum.
We have a quorum, but okay, we have Alex here. Okay, very good. All right, we have a quorum, just good enough. So I guess I have to acknowledge the land. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Maccabi, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. So have we done a complete, we have Jane McNeil, Mike Lamplin, myself, Councillor Cuttle, and Amy Hawken. Hello, Amy. And Daryl is given regrets, and I guess Hamad is not here tonight, unfortunately. Has everybody tested their mics were working?
Check, check. I think I'm good.
Okay, good.
And I think I'm good as well.
Oh, great, Amy. Oh, perfect. All right, so I guess we're ready to go. Has anybody looked at the meetings from their February 23rd meeting? Are there any errors or omissions?
Just, I guess, just a slight wording thing I noticed, I guess, Mike, that and I think it does make a bit of difference. It was under 9.1.1.
Yes.
And maybe Gareth can clarify if my understanding, it says recreation planning specialist parks and recreation indicated work was being done with various groups to ensure accessibility and inclusion in accessing the Western Common. And my sense was that Parks and Recreation were looking to more broadly define trail types and ensure some accessibility in accessing trails of the Western Commons.
That is certainly what we discussed about redefining access.
Yeah, I thought there was kind of a more broadly redefining of trail types, and that the intent and that it was important to include some, that accessibility would be included to some extent in the Western Commons.
Do you recall it that way, Gareth?
Yeah, that's the way I would position it.
Okay, I think it's important that we get to the details as much as we can as we move forward with things. It's really important to,
yeah, and obviously it'll be outlined in the staff report as well. But,
okay.
I think the spirit of the minutes makes sense, but if we want to add that qualifier in there,
yeah, just to keep that consistency. It's been such a big issue that we've been struggling with.
Yeah, exactly.
Katie, would it be acceptable if Jane just put a sentence together explaining what her concerns are and forward that to you for inclusion?
Yeah, that'd be great. We also have our own working minutes that we can incorporate as well when we're getting some feedback from Jane. So that would be, everything's welcome.
Perfect. She'll get the wording so we get.
Okay. Yeah, I can I'll just type up my notes that I wrote down from the conversations and send that along. Okay.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments, folks? No, I think we covered the basics there. So we need this the minutes to be a motion to approve them.
I'll approve.
Okay, and the seconder?
I can second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? All right, so carried. Thank you very much. So we have the order of business here for today's agenda. Are there any additions or deletions here?
There have been no additions or deletions.
Okay, thank you very much. So shall we move to approve this order of business?
I move to approve.
Thank you, Counselor.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jane. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And so covered. Okay, so it's business arising out of the meetings. I don't believe we have any business arising out of these minutes, do we? I don't think so. And I guess we have to, we've got a lot of things here. Boilerplate. Conflict of interest. Do we have any conflicts of interest in anything we're just discussing today? Self-declared. Okay, very good. We do not. And I don't believe we have any deferred business to bring up. Any correspondence, please?
There's been no correspondence.
Thank you very much. And any petitions?
There were no petitions as well.
All right. Okay, so I guess we have no presentations per se, but we're going to get in some information reports from staff here. So I guess the first thing order of business we have is 911 Parks Capital Information Discussion. Gareth, you're on the floor, sir. I think. There he is.
Mr. Chair. I'm actually going to send it right over to my colleague, Alex Quinn, as requested, basically from the last meeting. So, Alex, I'll let you take it away with the budget, and then I think that the committee wants to discuss, again, the idea of opening some of the section of the trail.
Thank you, Gareth.
Sure.
Welcome, Alex.
Thank you. Yeah, just getting onto the budget. It basically, from what I could gather, in the Wilderness Parks budget, the CP 00014, there's approximately $50,000 left for this project in that account.
Question.
Sure.
When you say there's $50,000 left in the account, does money get added to that account on an annual basis?
It would depend on the approval of the capital budget by council. So this money was left over. The last time we had money in this account, I believe, Gareth, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a few years ago when we had WSP and they were doing that bridge design. This was money that was left over from that fiscal year.
And what year is that,
that's
Alex?
Correct.
I've got some notes here. There were no additional funds proposed in the 2021 budget, and there were no funds that were proposed until the 22-23 budget. That was the last update that we had going back in, I believe it was January, was not, Garrett?
That's correct.
And what was the proposed addition to the budget?
I don't know if there's anything that's been proposed to date since the last time that we did any work out in phase 2 and the design work for the bridge down at Nichols Run.
Okay, so there's $50,000 left in the project account. I don't know why I assume that there was money that was annually allocated to this park. Am I making that up, or
I have recollection of that as well, Patty, just from attending the original meetings. And I was under the impression that, you know, things were stopping because of the cost of the bridge and that it was going to require multiple years worth of budget. And that's why things were stopping. So the idea was that annually there would be money deposited there.
So
had
I
that
can jump
changed?
in a little bit.
Go ahead.
Yes, Gareth, go ahead. Thank you.
So I can't remember which year it was specifically. I could come back to the committee on this one specifically, but a few years back, all of the money went into one line specifically in the capital budget, which is under Wilderness Parks. So that's inclusive of BNDCL, Shaw, Western Common, I believe another one in there as well, rather than a line specifically for the Western Common. So it all goes in there and it's one single account that we would pull at it as needed. But previously it was $50,000 annually, which was going to the Western Common specifically for trail construction.
Okay,
I
so
think you did mention,
go ahead, Jane.
I think that did get mentioned in our probably April 2021 meeting.
Okay, so I guess where it gets confusing, and I still feel relatively new to this, is understanding what money we have, what money we should have if there's an annual allocation, what money we need, and how we get the money we need. So we've got 50,000, which isn't going to get us very far. We know we want to complete the trail. So I was really hoping today that we would have a good sense of not just what we had, but what we needed, and some ideas about where we might be able to get, where we could get that funding, including the money that's recently being released from the contribution fund, integration fund.
So Gareth, I'm going a little bit sideways here, but so you mentioned that there's not going into specific funds like for the WCAC the Western Common now, it's staying in a general wilderness fund. But was the concept that we'd still have access to 50,000 a year? Because the idea was, that I recall, we were saving up the 50,000 to build a bridge starting back then. So we should have been sort of sitting at about 150 now. So is that the concept, or can we go for a bigger lump of money, but depending on what we propose? How is this general one-line wilderness fund supposed to go? Or can somebody else put a proposal in and take our 50 or 100,000 that should be coming to us here?
Sorry, I'm trying to wrap my head around what was being asked there. Is the question that what about future funds and where they're all going, or?
There's supposed to be a $50,000 a year coming towards putting trails and doing work in the Western Common. And is that still the concept? Has that been changed? Can we go from,
no,
or can somebody else take that money?
No, there's still construction, obviously, which needs to be completed and continued. We're about 3 kilometers in of trail of a 60-kilometer trail network. So there is inherently going to be more and more funds that are needed over the years. As Councillor Cuttle mentioned, there's funding coming from the Community Integration Fund, which is the offset from the organic sorting facility, but that's yet to be in any. It's not over in our budget yet, but we still obviously have work that needs to be done. Whether it's $50,000 or $100,000 at a time, I can't speak to it. All I can speak to what's in the account right now, and Alex mentioned that that's 50,000. So we know that there's going to be more and more funds needed. It's just a matter of ensuring that we have them in place.
Yeah, it was under my perhaps naive opinion that the impression that 50,000 was going to be added to that every year, and we were sort of saving to create the bridge. Now we're thinking of going slightly differently with changing the trail type there. So I guess Councillor Cuttle's concern is still there, how we're going to move forward and try to create something that can work. Now there's, as you say, there's 60 kilometers of trail, but we're not going to open all that at once. So we'd like to have something now in the near future opened with the funds we have now. Yeah, Jane, and then we'll go back to Councillor Cuttle.
Gareth, is there a process to secure funding every year then going forward with this new big pot of money or little pot of money, whatever it might be? What's the process for committees like ours to tap into those funds on an annual basis?
The committee, I defer to my colleagues in the clerk's office, but the committee wouldn't be making specific requests for funding. That's not the purview or within the terms of reference of the committee. So the capital budget is overseen by regional council and approved and ratified by regional council. That's the process.
Councillor Cuddle.
Right, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay.
That's odd.
No, it's because I'm switching. Look, let me get away from my computer. Is that better?
Technology.
She's getting feedback.
Hmm.
Okay, hold
We can't see you or hear you, Councillor.
on. Okay. I'm back. Okay, there, how's that? Okay. Woo. Wow. Wow. Okay, so back to being serious here. Okay, so Gareth, I think the big challenge here is that we've decided that we're not going to pursue 60 kilometers of trail. In fact, just hearing you say that is like, wait, what happened to all those other conversations we had about rethinking the concept here, looking at phases, needing to complete the trail that's existing now, it's in a terrible state, you can't walk on it, and at least opening the park to some point. Now, while we can't make the motion, it's council who has to make the motion for the funding. I'm the councillor here, and I need to know, what do I need to do to complete the trail work that has been initiated? And it was my understanding too that money was being set aside every year. And then, my hope is like we had 150,000 and we could pair that with the 325 that's coming from the integrated fund that was released this year into Parks and Rec. So that money is being moved from solid waste into Parks and Rec. And then if we need additional funding and I need to go and make a motion at council, it would be great if it was a recommendation that kind of, came from the Western Common Advisory Committee to Halifax and West or to regional council or whatever the process is. Otherwise, we're just sitting here spinning our wheels and having the same conversation over and over again. I mean, what we want to do is move the mark. And I think, from past conversations, we've said many times now, we have a half-finished trail that's really not usable. And we really need a plan to open up complete what's been started, right? Including after our tour there last week, like rethinking the trailhead and how people even access the trail. There's some kind of conceptual design planning work that needs to be done, a budget and finding the sources of funding. So I'm kind of like, if our whole financial report here tonight is that we have $50,000, I'm kind of, well, where do we go next? So I guess I'm looking, Gareth, to you as a project lead on this to work with me, if that's the process, through the committee to figure out what we need to do to complete the state, to complete at least what's there now, to finish it off so we can open that segment of the trail.
I see Alex has had his hand up a couple times there, so I'm going to let Alex jump in as Parks Capital.
I can't hear you, Gareth.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, Alex. Can you hear me, Kat? Can you hear him, Councillor?
No.
I don't hear you anymore, Councillor.
Hear me? I can hear you. You can hear me. I do have to leave in 2 minutes, so I'm gonna now sign off of this and switch on to my phone. But I'll wait for your response there. Apologies.
Okay, so are you going now, Councillor, or are you waiting for Alex to speak?
I'll wait for Alex to speak. I just see something in there from Amy about the compost facility. That funding from the compost facility has been secured. It has been released. It is accessible.
So I just looked at the website quickly as we were talking, just to see in the minutes if I could see anything. Jane had mentioned something from October. So I just went into the minutes. There's a comment before that from Gareth that's in the formal minutes that is posted to the website. So I just wasn't sure if that was helpful. Thought I would post it there just in case, so we could revisit it if needed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alex, feel free to jump in.
Sure. I just wanted to kind of back up and touch on some of the items that the councilor had mentioned. I understand, the big desire is to try to get some type of trail in that's usable as it stands right now. It's not usable, and we've got to go in and basically finish the surface and do some work out there to get that finished. I know there's a lot of people asking why we're not doing that right now, but a couple of years ago when we basically kind of paused this project, the whole thing was we were trying to decide whether or not we wanted to build a vehicle type bridge over McDonald's Run in order to bring construction vehicles across to continue the same cross section on the other side of the lake. When we started down that road, we started getting cost estimates were $600,000-$700,000 just to get across, not even knowing what we were into on the other side of the lake. So all of a sudden some flags were raised. And at that time we said, let's go back and re-examine what we're going to do on the other side of the lake. And I believe in order to do that, we'd have to go back and make some amendments to the plan, or basically go in and look at accessibility and things like that. So I believe that's why the whole thing kind of got paused, is we've got to deal with what we're going to do on the crossing and what the other side of the crossing is going to look like as far as the trail goes. I understand everybody wants to get this done, but the problem is if we go in and finish that trail, that 1.5 kilometers that we have now, that's beautiful, up to the waterfall on one side and down to the McDonald Run on the other side, or Nichols Run, whatever that brook is called. The problem is if we do that and open it up, when we continue on with the next couple of phases of construction, we may have to bring heavy construction equipment or other equipment over this newly finished trail, which will basically, compromise the condition of the trail, and it'll also close the trail off to public use while construction's going on. So I believe we wanted to kind of look at it, have a plan going forward, what we were going to do with the crossing, what we were going to do on the other side of the crossing with respect to the cross section, backcountry, continue what we were doing. So in order to do that, I believe there was a timing issue getting into, looking at the master plan. And I think that's what caused the pause. There were also several other issues. We looked at coming in off that cul-de-sac, maybe as a temporary access to build the bridge. There wasn't a large desire to go down that road. And then we also talked about coming in off the old coach road, but we may be into the same type of problem. So it's complicated, but on the surface, a lot of people are saying, why don't we just go in and finish the trail? I think we're trying to, take everything into account. And of course, we also had some comments come back from the facility where they expressed concerns that if we open this trail up tomorrow, parking may be an issue, security for staff may be an issue, lighting behind the facility may be an issue. So it does get complicated. I think we just want to know what we're going to do before we make that next step. We don't want to take one step forward and 2 steps back. So that was kind of my last kind of understanding of the project. And like I said, I've been away from it for a while, but it looks like it's basically similar to what it was, about a year and a half ago.
If I can add to that, and I know we're a little bit out of order, and I'm thankful that this is an advisory committee, so we can have that bit of flexibility. If we're looking ahead to the next topic of 9.1.2, there's an overall update on what's going on with the Western Commons. So the last time we came to this advisory committee, we were wrapping up a staff report, which was intended to be at council next month for discussion, and that's regarding the actual trail type. And as everybody knows, we've discussed the merits of either an amendment or an addendum to the master plan to talk about trying to find opportunities ultimately to create barrier-free sections of this trail and having that flexibility to work within there, so that when we start flagging out trails, we look at feasibility of that, but largely focusing on backcountry trails off of some sections of accessible trails. And until we get that addendum included with the master plan, it would be premature to advance anything beyond there. So I hope that clears it up a little bit. On that note, that report's going in August now. I just got news of it last week. It's been pushed to August due to scheduling conflicts. So, but that should clear it up, hopefully, as much as possible.
So, Gareth, that staff report's what we talked about the last year, changing, looking at reevaluating the trail types and going from some accessible and some backcountry and a mix. Is there any chance that the committee can have a look at a draft of that report prior to it going to council?
No, unfortunately, that's not the process just followed. It's a staff report initiated from this advisory committee through the community council, through regional council, and then staff work on the report, work on it. Obviously, we've had some good discussions and over the years that start to inform us in the perspective of this committee, and this committee has been supportive of the idea of creating sections of accessible trails and then backcountry beyond that, because obviously the utmost importance of this wilderness common is the wilderness and preservation of that, and we want to be able to stick with that as much as possible. But the process which we follow is we write the staff report that goes directly back to regional council.
Right. So we helped initiate it, but no further feedback until we see the final result.
That's right.
Well, that's well, it's disappointing. It won't even hit council till August, so that basically means nothing more can happen this year. Really? Does it not?
Alex, do you have any thoughts on that as far as what could be done this year with that 50,000 you do have?
I mean, we do have money in there. We could go in and try to, basically make that surface of the existing trail, more user friendly for sure. The risk we run, though, like I said before, if we decide that we're going to use that as a main entry point for the next phases of construction, it may compromise what's there. But maybe what you could look at doing is maybe look at that first kilometer and assess it. I haven't been out there this year, but I can, take a walk out there, and maybe it's something we can open up a portion. But again, then it opens that whole can of issues, parking at the facility, security at the facility, things of that nature. I mean, yes, you've got $50,000. We could get out there and put some crusher dust or type 1 and crusher dust out there and make it passable. It could be a temporary solution. Jeez.
Well,
yeah, sure.
Well, what I'm thinking there, I'm sort of jumping in here, Alex, but what I'm sort of thinking is maybe Gareth's got an idea what's in the staff report, but let us say at Nichols Run, after that, we're recommending we don't need a large bridge. We need a much smaller bridge, because after that, we're going for a backcountry trail. So if you're armed with that knowledge, we can do work all the way through there and to Nichols Run and to the waterfall, knowing we're not going to bring that level of heavy equipment in. I believe that is a correct, a reasonable assumption, is it not, Gareth?
Yep, that's a very reasonable assumption to make. Sorry, I had to turn my camera off. I'm having connection issues, so.
Yep, no worries.
But yeah, that ultimately, every update, every conversation which I've had with this advisory committee has been around creating sections and using this Nichols Lake loop or the waterfall section as an example of, here's our 6-foot wide trail, and once you get to these water crossings, beyond those water crossings, it will be backcountry trail. And then when we get up into the second, third, and fourth phases, we'll be looking for other opportunities to create 6-foot wide sections, which could be developed to a barrier-free standard. So hopefully that clears things up.
Jane, please.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I guess for Gareth and Alex, when we went to the site last week with Amy, there was definitely some significant issues and concerns that she had around safety, around people, I guess, accessing the trail, allowing their dogs to go loose. And so it's very, very evident that people were actively using the trail right now. And I'm just wondering if it wouldn't make a lot of sense to take a significant portion, maybe of that budget or whatever is needed, to at least establish that, just that front entrance to the trail in a way that, and I don't know, I guess we didn't get far enough to know how much that would cost, but I think Amy had given some thought, and we talked about what things need to be in place in terms of signage and access to the trail in that location that keeps it from, that would let it coordinate better with the activities that are happening at the Prospect Center from a safety and health and environmental perspective. I would be in favor of that, like looking at that, establishing that front end of the trail and getting some good signage, and even maybe before we get the trail, finally surfaced, let's get the message out about what the trail's for, that people aren't allowed to have their dogs, loose, and to be walking and caring for the trail in a respectful way, right? There was dog poop, bags that were getting picked up. And anyway, we just saw a lot of things that probably could be addressed maybe in the very upfront part of the trail with some good signage and some other features.
Yes.
Yep. So we had this conversation last week between myself and Alex and Jeff Spares, Jeff's the manager of Parks Capital, and we had similar level of conversation around, okay, let's get some signage up, finish some trail section, and when can we do that? It's just a matter of having that conversation and mobilizing it. Obviously, we're aware that even if you put up a trail under construction sign and you rope it off, people are going to go under the rope. It's nearly impossible to mitigate. But obviously, with appropriate signage and some trash receptacles and figuring out even a temporary solution on parking.
And I guess we even talked about accessing the trail even off to one side of where that entry road is, so it was a more defined. So the actual entrance to the trail maybe even came out into the, I guess I'm not sure what direction, but even came out into where that main gate is. So as soon as you hit the gate, you're on the trail, like establishing it, if there's room to do that there, so that you're discouraging people from pulling in and around that gate and doing things. That was just something else we talked about. Not sure space-wise what that might look like specifically, but just different things we talked about.
I think that in general, there's, as we're moving forward and even looking at options for even temporary opening of this trail, there's going to need to be further conversations with Amy and the folks at the Prospect Road Community Center to make sure that we're doing it as appropriately as possible. And that's not anything that we would need the advisory committee for, but obviously guidance in that direction is great. And I'll leave it to Alex and Jeff to figure out how we can get this all squared away.
So if I may, for discussions with PRCC, it may be that some of those funds should come from the city per se, because that building is a city facility as opposed to a wilderness common facility. What is there anything we can do to start those discussions? Alex, are you the man to talk to PRCC to find out what needs to be done in consultation with Councillor Cuttle, or is there somebody, some other entity that has to be brought into this to start that discussion?
I believe there'd be another group that we brought in for facilities. If we're talking about the trail work being done, that's something I can kind of have some jurisdiction over as far as that money that's existing to complete the work on the trail, which may include some signage or trying to redefine the entrance into it. But again, $50,000. And also keep in mind, I know we're talking about pedestrian bridges crossing the waterfall and Nichols Run, but also keep in mind, even pedestrian bridges, these are large crossings. We are going to have to try to get some type of heavy equipment in here to bring these structures in place. There will be equipment, we can't carry by hand, maybe steel frames in. So there will be some heavier equipment that will be required at some point, I guess, despite what type of bridge we put in there, just because of the size of the crossing itself. And, we will have to get to, abutments and things like that, that we want to, anything we construct, we want, it's got to be to a standard that's going to last for sure. But to your point, yes, I can, look at that money that's allocated existing and look at things like signage, cleaning up the entrance, and seeing how much of that trail we might be able to get some gravel on to have some type of finished surface, provided, everybody's okay with that opening up temporary or partially. A section of the trail is open.
I
Yeah, I have a comment too.
Yes, Councillor, please.
Yeah, so, just to reiterate what Jane said there, that when we did a walk with Amy, and to your point, Mike, that, I think part of this is with the city, part of it has to do with the trail. The garbage cans, for example, like finding a solution for the garbage cans. So, they're not back in the dark where people can go and dump garbage, or, if you're not going to be able to open up the gate. I mean, I think there's just what really needs to happen is the work needs to be done with the PRCC to identify the issues. And I think most of them can be solved through design. And then the trailhead, moving the trailhead would definitely fit with the trail program. I think the frustration here is that people are using it because it's been sitting there in a half-done state now for quite a while. And like thinking that it's going to be a while longer before it's completed. It doesn't matter if you have the signs up, like you have people right now looking for recreational opportunities, and that trail exists. So I think even for us having a work plan, and I know we've talked about this before, about kind of having a work plan of what are the next, lay out the next steps and lay out some timeframes, and maybe that will be in the staff report. But I think it would help all of us to kind of focus the dialogue if we could break down the components into kind of an order of operations to say, we need to do, address the trailhead. We need to determine the trail types to know what kind of bridge we want to put in. We need to finish the topping on the trails to make them more user friendly. We need, garbage cans and signs, and who's going to be responsible for emptying those garbage cans. Like, there's a bunch of components that, without having them all together, like in a to-do list, in a work plan, to say, like, these are the pieces, and here's kind of the suggested order, and here's the cost associated with it. I feel that we're often just kind of like swimming around in circles on this instead of finding the direction forward. So maybe that's all going to be in the staff report, which will be awesome. But if we need to go to council and get this in the budget for next year, like, I need that information to also help make that happen. But we do have that other money available as well, which I think could help get a lot of this done. I mean, here I am, I'm by the Backlands here, and all the Macintosh Run Watershed Association. They put in a helicopter, they put in a bridge by helicopter, a substantial bridge. I don't know if you've had the chance to see it, but it's a pretty awesome bridge. And had the big beams dropped in, airlifted in and dropped in, and they constructed the bridge, and they did all of that like in a couple weeks. So, it's just, I think we need to kind of have a plan and start to see some movement.
So if I may, Gareth and Alex, are you saying that we really can't move forward until that staff report comes out? As far as doing anything on the trail?
I think that the most important thing right now is making sure that we have that addendum in the master plan to give us that latitude and flexibility of how we would be undertaking our work plan. Councillor Cuddle's a great point. Lots to unpack there and lots to note. A lot of it would be just overall operations of the trail, like we would do it at many parks across the municipality, but there's also the working relationship that does need to exist between HRM Parks Operations and the adjacent or facility operators of the Prospect Road Community Center. So there's a lot of coordination will need to happen. We need to figure out the best approach to do that. But as far as right now is concerned, yes, the most important thing is getting the staff report to council and have that addendum put in place so that we can keep on.
So is that correct, Alex? You wouldn't be prepared to do anything to upgrade that trail or signage until that staff report has been tabled?
Well, it's the signage, technically the trail, and I understand people are using the trail, but technically the trail is closed in its current state right now. So, having signage, we'd have to bring it up to a standard, a usable standard, before we put any type of, signage up that would encourage the use of the trail. And getting back to your point, it's without knowing exactly what we're going to be doing on either side of the water courses. We're taking a chance, right? That's ultimately what it is. So it's
I understand. I understand what you're saying. So really, sorry to cut you off, but just do not waste any time here. So basically, we're at a standstill for the next 3 months at least, until staff report comes out, unfortunately. So that means the only thing we can move forward with now really is hopefully getting some people together, talking to the PRCC folks and Amy there to try and put cameras, lighting, whatever needs to be done back there in anticipation that this trail will be open. I mean, this trail at some point in time will be open. So is that what we should encourage to happen over the next few months, that conversation happens and some efforts start back there, knowing that this trail will at some point become live and can be signed and used and blessed by all?
That's correct.
I must say, I'm disappointed we can't move forward with getting that trail officially live this summer, but anyway, so is that something that can happen there, Alex? It could be expedited with Councillor Cuddle's help over the next few weeks.
Which expedition? You mean the report itself?
No.
You mean
I wish.
Yeah.
I mean, preparing the PRCC area, the lands behind, putting new lights, cameras, whatever needs to be done so that the behind the PRCC will be ready for the trail once we can officially open it.
Yeah, I guess, Gareth, I'd have to go back to you on that. I mean, is that something facilities would be involved with?
Yeah, we'd have to absolutely get facilities involved with that. So I've brought it up again with our folks on just, it's always nice to get a reminder nudge on these things. So appreciate it, Amy. And I've already been talking to Andy about it to make sure that he's aware. And Amy's had her hand up for about a year, so let's go to Amy.
Sorry, Amy, I can't see you. You're in a dark background. You're in black and you're in a black background. I'm sorry, dear.
That's okay. That's totally fine. So yeah, I just wanted to hit on a couple of things. Like, definitely echo your sentiment, Mike, that it is disappointing. Like, it's another summer that it's going to go kind of unopened officially, but the reality is that it is being used as if it's open. Like, the volume is incredible on a daily basis. So certainly, like, you guys saw the letter that we had submitted before, like the security cameras and lighting are a big occupational health and safety thing for us. The signage that we're talking about too is not necessarily trail signage. A big issue we're dealing with is dogs off leash. And we know on HRM property, they should be on leash, but we don't have any signage to reflect that. So we can't enforce it. And we have about 100 kids on site daily who are often outside, and we're having some issues where dogs are approaching them, and it's quite scary situations. And we don't want to wait until something happens, right, to start asking for this signage. So those are big ones. I'd certainly be willing to do a tour with any municipal staff that wanted to come out so that you guys can see what we took the rest of the committee through. So let me know if there's a desire to do that and times that would work for you guys. I'm happy to arrange that. And perhaps maybe, like, Jane and I had talked about this a little bit. like we're witnessing some really interesting behaviors that are happening on the trail as well. So you're looking at the litter situation, like the first probably kilometer in, there was a huge amount of, dog poop bags, that sort of thing. Having the garbage can at least back there to be emptied by HRM would be a huge help. Like it is an issue now, and we know that you don't want to encourage any more use on it, but it is an issue. And in addition to that, people are there. We have to care for it as if it's being used and open, because people are very much treating it that way, right? So to have the garbage, to have the signage, that's not necessarily indicating the trail is open, but how to use the trail. And, we're witnessing people take in dollies full of firewood to have fire back there. They're participating in things that aren't allowable activities on the trail. So perhaps a small portion of those funds could be used to update the community and do a mail out and talk to them about what's permissible and what's not, and where the committee stands in the planning, and that we're waiting for this report. Like, I think that would go a huge distance as well.
I think you needed some parking signs too.
Yeah, no parking signs as well.
I think, Amy, let's talk in the next week. I think there's a lot more there than even, it's more operational than advisory.
Yeah.
Let's set something up in the next week. I'm going to email you right now.
Yep, perfect. And I would just say, just to make the distinction, so again, the municipality owns the facility, but the organization that operates the facility is the ROC. So when you use the acronym PRCC, it's just simply referring to the facility, where the ROC are the not-for-profit operators of the facility.
Thank you for that clarification, Amy. So Gareth, I'm heartened to hear that you will be in touch with Amy and the folks at the PRCC, and yes, and Alex, if you want to do a little walk on the trail there, I'd be happy to join you someday, any day. I'm retired. Do that. I'm sure Amy would be happy to join, and maybe a few other members of our committee as well.
Yeah, no, I'll take you up on your offer for sure. I'll maybe try to coordinate something and get the contact information through Gareth, and maybe meet you guys out there. Like I said, I haven't walked it since last fall, and like I said, I welcome the opportunity to go out and have a walkthrough for sure.
Yeah,
I'll join you too, if you let me know when and where, or when that's happening.
For sure.
We'll do our best to inspire you. Okay, well, we sort of beat around the bush there quite a bit. Some good information, some good discussion. As I'm saddened the staff report will be late there. Well, it's deferred. I guess it's not officially late because I'm not doing it, they're doing it. So I think that concludes 911. I think, does that conclude 912 as well? Did we roll all the updates in there in that discussion?
Yeah. Again, I just want to reiterate that though I wish I could be just floating drafts of reports to the committee. I've really been actively listening throughout the years on the best way to not only uphold like the entirety of the master plan, but really try to ensure that we're getting out and talking to the right folks as far as addressing accessibility and inclusion for recreational activities, specifically trail use, which we've been able to do since the last meeting. We've met with some advocacy groups as well as our Office of Diversity and Inclusion to understand things to an entire new level, and it's interesting. This is more anecdotal than official update, but things have changed significantly since the adoption of the master plan as far as access and inclusion is concerned, and we're constantly learning as we move forward. And I think due to the advice of this committee to go out and have these conversations and consider things a little bit differently and try to carve out a little more flexibility as far as our trail type is concerned, we've put together a good report that will allow us to now progress with things. And we'll see. It'll be it's less than 3 months. I think it's kind of mid-August that the report's going. It's unfortunate there was a scheduling challenge, but we're in good shape, and hopefully it'll be accepted by regional council and immediately added to as an addendum to the master plan.
Very good. Thank you for your encouraging thoughts, sir. Okay, so I think that concludes 912, and now we go to 921. Interesting numbering here. So our Drysdale Bog visit went quite well last week. I guess maybe we'll just sort of give a little bit of an update of what we thought about it, and any thoughts that come right off the top of our heads. Jane, would you like to lead?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was just insightful to have your feet on the ground in that space that, you know, borders and encompasses part of the Western Commons, you know, advisory for the Western Commons land. I think it was just great to get out and get a chance to see it, and to have an understanding of, I guess, the land issue and the current land use for these properties that coastal restoration, or the company that they, I guess that they're the bigger company, I guess they're associated with, are interested in. So, I mean, I guess the other thing it perhaps brought to light is there seemed to be a lot of space there that would be quite accessible to people who wanted to walk a trail in a wooded area. Like the land that we walk down, this easement area, which I guess Patty confirmed is public lands, that actually is very accessible, would be, you know, a nice piece of land to have a trail on that's almost wouldn't take that much work to develop. So perhaps that was a bit of an insight for all of us too.
I have to agree. It was very, very nice that we walked up the access road that is on their lands, but then we intersected another road that comes in from the 333 and goes right into Big Indian Lake.
Yeah, it was just such a nice
pipeline
evening.
access.
Beautiful.
And it is a nice wide, and it would not take Alex, for example, and Gareth, it would not take very much work to bring that up to fully accessible. You know, there's no groundwork needed. It just needs a little bit of top dusting. Really, it's in remarkably good shape. It's been used many, many times over the years, clearly, and nicely packed down. So there's a really, so if we could, maybe that should be one of our next efforts for the Western Common, is to get that access road to Big Indian Lake, because that's a good sized lake, and there's a nice place there that one could launch canoes and kayaks and the like.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sitting in my car now, so I don't have access to the map. But Gareth or Alex, I don't know if you have, if you could pull up the Parks and Rec map for that area around the Drysdale Bog, because there's a couple of big chunks of HRM owned land that kind of cut in there. It was quite interesting to look at. If not, I can take a screen grab of the map and share it around when I get back. But that other end actually connects to the Western Common. I guess our issue is, how do you connect from the road to that easement? And I would love to go back, even with my bike, because I think it's all bikeable. Where that piece comes out over, I think you might be able to access it from Evergreen. I'm not sure. We'd have to go exploring, but
yeah, not directly, no.
Not directly. Well, this is the Old Coach Road. Then, like, somehow there's something that circles all the way around the organic waste facility, all the way. There's some path, because
Well, that
Somebody
may,
who walks-
maybe that's the pipeline, the extended pipeline access
maybe.
from years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry to jump in. Did anybody happen to take a GPS on them when you did the walk?
No. Oh, I didn't.
I didn't.
I think I got GPS in some of the pictures I took.
All right. It would be interesting to have a look at, but not in any official committee capacity, but a good thing to maybe just float some emails by us. That'd be great.
So yeah, Gareth, did you get the email that Steve Adams sent in about the Drysdale Bog and coastal?
Not a recent one. This is going a few months back.
Yeah, it would be a few months back.
Yeah.
There's a picture in there, a picture. One of the pages was lands to be rezoned with a rose for the colors of that they wanted to use industrial, and then the green plots around the Drysdale Bog, but the pipeline road is shown on that, and that's the one we're talking about. But I can forward this to you if you want after. And
That'd be great. Thank you.
Send you a few pictures here of what we're talking about. Yes, yes, Jane.
Well, I guess I know we did observe this, and I've got this map from the walking guide book. That was kind of the map I was using. It does show, I guess, that the Big Indian Road crosses that pipeline easement.
Is that what they call it? Big Indian Road?
Yeah.
Actually using where my index finger is there, Gareth, is where we're looking at the pipeline coming down to Big Indian Lake. And there's the pipeline road coming down there.
Right. Thanks to my lovely connection issues tonight, I'm having a very difficult time with all mapping that I need to pull up. So my apologies. My apologies, folks.
No, I'll send you a copy of this after, but getting back to the whole reason for the walkthrough with it, we met with Steve Adams and the three principals in this company, and discussed what they wish to do, and they own all of the Drysdale Bog in its entirety, and they'd like to consolidate their businesses on lands that's not the bog, but that those lands would have to be zoned appropriately for them. But they're quite willing to gift over to the Western Common, to HRM, the Drysdale Bog in its entirety, which is a most generous effort. So that was the essence of our walkabout. But I thought we were just going to be talking about the bog, and then all of a sudden we're down there looking on the shores of Big Indian Lake, and all of our we're already actually on Western Common land at that point. And all of a sudden we're thinking, oh my goodness, this was very easy to get here, and not a lot of work would be needed if to bring these roads up to fully easily accessible condition, as long as we could get permit, if there's a right of way or position to get from the 333 to the pipeline road. And I guess that's a question that has to be answered somewhere along the line. I don't know, who do we ask that question to, Councillor?
I believe I think I don't know who we asked. I actually think we need to go back and walk it. And it's one of these situations where I see that we're, talking about this wilderness park and these trails, and we don't really have a lot of familiarity with what assets currently exist, or experience with them. I am fairly certain that pipeline road there continues on through the Western Common and comes out somewhere on the 333. So I think it's just a matter of finding it out. I don't know who I would ask.
I guess map 23 in the Western Commons Wilderness Plan does actually show that easement. I think it's I don't know if you can see the red line right here, I think, just a second there. Yeah. It's that red line right there. It does show where it comes out on the 333.
Is
There
that,
you go.
oh my, is
That's-
that Exhibition Park?
That's map 23 in the management plan. So if you have that, dig out your management plan and you can see that line and where it runs, and you can see the boundaries for the Western Commons land as well on there.
Yeah, that looks, yeah, that intuitively seems to be what I would think it would look like.
I'm just comparing it to that, the walking guide, and that, I'm pretty sure that is what that line is, that.
Yeah.
And it is a road. I've heard somebody describe it as a road. So that's what I was thinking. I should chuck my bike in my car
And actually, we're going analog here in the digital world. Anyway, looking at the legend on aforementioned map figure 23, it actually calls that a barrier-free trail.
Yep. There you go.
done.
And since it's got two colors, it also ranks as a backcountry hiking trail. She's got two titles potentially. Anyway, it comes out very nicely on the lake.
Yeah, and I mean, it is phase 3, but I guess phase 3 is just a number in a bigger plan, right? So I'm not sure how significant the phase numbers are when you're anxious to just get people out, being practical, I guess, and wanting to get people out accessing the wilderness, accessing trails and enjoying the spaces, I guess, as soon and practical as possible.
Yeah, the only issue we're going to run into with that road where it comes out on the 333 is the extension of the Ragged Lake Industrial Park as it extends from where it is now, potentially linking into Evergreen. I mean, that's just that would just be a small portion, because that industrial park, if it moves ahead, is running kind of parallel to the highway. It's not going in deep. So it would just be a matter of making sure that trailhead with parking gets built into whatever future plans happen there. Yeah, something like that.
Also, looking at a separate map here, Councillor, it appears that the proposed expanded area for the composting facility might be an issue here as well. That I think that trail goes through that block of land.
Based on I remember I was telling you about a gentleman who was calling in about the silt in the brook.
Yeah.
Around I think, yeah, that trail goes close to where the site is. It doesn't necessarily go through the construction zone.
Oh, yeah, maybe not the construction zone, but it may be on that block of land.
Yeah.
So Gareth, just come back to you. It's us talking here, but we're come back to you. Is the getting that trail looked at, is that anywhere in your staff report? How does that fit in, do you think, in the bigger scheme of
Looking at
trails?
looking at accessing lands as on that right of way.
Oh, we
No,
can't
just-
hear you very well, Gareth.
I'm sorry.
No, I meant Big Indian
I've been doing
Lake.
this for 2 years. You'd think I'd be used to it by now. Sorry, folks. Sorry. Looking at the Drysdale Bog lands or the Pipeline Road lands?
Using the pipeline road for access to Big Indian Lake, yes.
Yeah, I think that's now I'm because I can't seem to pull it up this evening. Based on what I recall of that, there's a trail that does run either parallel to it or along it. I just, there's so much trail there that I'm having a tough time thinking of it, but based on my recall, that would be one of the future sections. And I mean, hopefully, and I'm optimistic with this, is that when we do have this addendum in place, we can start pursuing these other options, and looking at things not necessarily as creating an entire network of barrier-free. I think earlier when I said 60 kilometers, it might have thrown everybody's hackles up a little bit, that we're not doing 60 kilometers of barrier-free. And it's like, well, as of right now, technically we are, but if the addendum is approved as it's written, we'd be looking for opportunities just to do sections. So that's what we're going for. Was there any other questions about Drysdale Bog? If there's anything else there, I really can't speak to it, just because it's part of the planning part of the rezoning process. I think they've applied for, but
Yes.
that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, we're not asking that. We're just, we thought it was a productive evening, and there was, there's two parts. One is, it was nice to see the Drysdale Bog. It was nice to hear the what might be possible, but it was very, very nice to all of a sudden look out over the shores of Big Indian Lake and walk down a very nice road to get there.
Gareth, I just sent you pictures from Big Indian. I just emailed them to you. And although it doesn't give you GPS coordinates, I was able to get a plotted map to show where our location was from one of those photos. So I also sent that.
You sent that to Gareth?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Amy. Okay, I'm sure Daryl would have had some thoughts on here. He was quite enthused with what we saw that day. Unfortunately, hasn't been able to join us. Does anybody else have any other comments on our Drysdale Bog adventure?
I just have a quick update just regarding the signage. When you guys left here, we had talked about potentially alternate ways to get some signage. I've looked into that a little bit. And now that I've gone through my notes, we had ordered signage before for the multi-use sport court, and HRM came and took it all down and told us it had to be issued through HRM. So it doesn't sound like that they would be appropriate signs to do them ourselves, that it has to come from HRM's print shop with their approved signage for things like no parking and the dog bylaw.
Councillor Cutler.
The dog bylaw, yes. If you're stating a bylaw, absolutely, that would be true. And also, if you're like stating any rules around the usage of HRM, like sports facilities, but I think you could probably do a no parking sign in front of your gate there for emergency reasons.
So, Amy, what signage did they actually take down?
It was sport court signage, and I don't have access to exactly what they were, but we had 3 or 4 signs up that they actually just came and confiscated, and they'd been paid for. So I just don't want to waste anybody's money.
I think the no parking sign on the gate is an issue for emergency access, and I think you could put just a simple no parking sign, no other, just no parking.
Okay.
I think we could buy one of those from Home Depot.
Dollar store. Okay. I think we've explored this, covered all these bases. Everyone in agreement? All right. So I don't guess are there any motion, anybody wants to put forward a motion for additional items for another day, or?
Mike, I CC'd you on some of that correspondence with Andrew Philopoulos around getting an update on the organic waste facility.
Yes.
And the water quality monitoring that's actually happening in the Western Common. So I believe he came back and said he'd be prepared to have a presentation at our next Western Common committee meeting.
Okay. So Katie, can you add that in?
If that's something everybody is interested in.
Yes, I'm interested in hearing about that. It's
Yep, I added it to our working notes right now, so I can follow up with Councillor Cuddle in the future to get a bit more information on the presentation request.
all right. Thank you.
Yeah. And in terms of finances, it might also be good to get an update on the release of those integration funds, the 325 or the 350 that's allocated for the Western Common. And just, I know that there's a process involved, like that it's allocated. I don't know what else is necessary to release those funds. But I don't know if there's any way to get a bit of an update on that. That would be useful as well, to see how we might be able to utilize those in a budget.
And who would they be released to?
Who would they? I think they got transferred this year in the budget. They got transferred from solid waste to Parks and Rec. So I think they're sitting in Parks and Rec right now. But what's required next, I'm not sure, but it would be good, you know, if they are, and I guess I'm going to have to go back to Parks and Rec and ask them again.
I think, sorry, Councillor, to jump in. I think between myself and Alex, we can figure out this will ultimately be coming to Parks Capital at the end of it. So it's one of those things that I always kind of ask every month or so. So what's going on with those monies that were promised a while back? So
And yeah, and also the 50,000 from 2021, 2022 that usually comes your way, our way. Because that was the thought that you know, nothing was being done while saving some money for a larger bridge. Well, hopefully we don't need to build the large bridge now, so we don't have to save for 10 years. But those monies should be available for other things for the Western Common.
It's just a question to Gareth and Alex. Have you guys ever seen the bridge that the McIntosh Run Watershed Association installed in the backlands there?
Yep, I've been on it.
That's a pretty substantial little bridge.
They installed it with one of their volunteers, from what I've been informed. I don't know officially, but one of their volunteers is a lot cooler than me and is a helicopter pilot.
Right. Yeah, but exactly. They dropped it in by helicopter. They didn't need to build a road for a truck. Wink, wink.
Yeah, that was one of the options that was talked about. I mean, helicopters are inherently quite costly, but so bridge construction is just overall quite costly. So.
Yes. Well, hopefully will that be touched on, Gareth, in that staff report? Do you know?
Specifically the bridge construction?
Not so much, but if
we did outline, sorry, Mr. Chair, to cut you off. We did outline in the staff report the constraints, particularly when you cross Nichols Run, because Nichols Run is the first of many water crossings that runs to the west of Nichols Lake. That's the biggest one, but I believe there's 7 or 8 more water crossings that will need to be addressed accordingly. Hence why we'd be looking at doing more of a backcountry trail to
yes,
really cut down on the construction and the disruption to the natural setting. That's the fundamental issue. So, but there's inherently some a little less work, hopefully, once you get beyond there.
yes, I was. Daryl was here to speak on that. He had some very specific thoughts and experiences along a country bridging. But anyway, that we can't deal with that right now. Okay, I think we've handled all of the items that were on our agenda up to now. Does everybody concur? I believe our next meeting is August. What date is it now? Is it
The
20?
next meeting is on August 24th.
That's what I was going to say. Thank you very much, Katie. Is that acceptable for everybody? August 24th? We already agreed on that one. So with that in mind, can I have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
I can
I'll
make the
move to
motion.
adjourn the meeting.
Or do we want to keep talking? We're having so much fun. Amy, did you motion?
So we'll give that to Jane. I'll second.
Okay, thank you very much. All in favor?
Bye.
Thank you very
Aye.
much, everybody. And Alex,